Hello guys, this is gonna be our weekend macro VOD. So before we start, I want you guys to know that there are 3 passwords throughout this video that will make up one phrase, so pay attention throughout to prove that you've watched it, because obviously I can't guarantee that anyone's watched it without you guys DMing me the password, right? So I ask that you don't share it with each other and that you send me the whole phrase after you've seen it, right? If you are not able to come up with the whole phrase, then I will assume that you haven't watched it. So no DMing me 2 of the 3 words, for example, right? Find all of them. It's like a scavenger hunt.
Now entering King's
So some of you guys had some questions about certain things, so
Defend
I'll cover them
objective A.
throughout the VOD. So just listen for when yours is answered. It'll just happen. Okay, so when we play Brawl, there's 2 ways of playing Brawl, right? You can anchor a corner and then spam, right? Or, like, because we have like a pretty pokey comp as well between the Kree and the Hanzo. Or we can go inside a building, for example inside statue, and then play explosively. So there's 2 ways of playing, right? So I guess what we can ask ourselves is, what does the enemy team do? They're dive, right? But they're also spam, right? So the question then we have to ask ourselves is, if we were playing into their dive portion, do we want to stand in the open? No, we do not. So that tells us we should probably play Explosiveness style. Okay, now if we were to try and spam versus spam them, because we're like a Brawl kind of pokey spam, right? These would be like pokey spam, and these would be like Brawl, right? If we were to try to spam them versus spam, would we win or lose? We would probably lose. So we're not good at doing this against them. So we should do this. So how do we brawl them like that? Well, we want to go inside statue, for example, and when they get to about here, we would just run out at them. Why do we have to wait for them to come closer before we run out? Why can we not run from here to like here? Well, of course, resource, right? Like, Brawl is characterized by one trait, right? And that's explosiveness. Okay? And I'm going to show you a good example of what I mean, and then we're going to compare it side by side with what actually we do on King's Row.
Ready for battle.
So in this case, you know, we don't have much in the way of spam. We're Reaper and May, right? So we decided to hide underneath them to counter their dive portion, just like we could have countered the dive portion of the enemy team's comp on King's Row, right? So we're playing inside. Now, when the enemy monkey gets within running distance of us, look at this. This is explosiveness, okay? Watch. We all run out. We hunt him down. He dies. Immediately, watch what our whole team does.
The objective is now active.
We all get back inside. Why? Well, the actual reason why is that if we think about a comp that's explosive, right? It indicates a power spike, correct? And the reason why it indicates a power spike is because you use cooldowns. So, for example, there are power spikes that come with each comp, right? So Brawl, let's say we're hiding in the statue, run out, kill something. Now, what did we use to run out and kill something? Well, we probably used amp, right? We might have used lamp to secure the kill and survive, right? Definitely used stun. We might have used boosters or micro missiles. Now, if we want to go from, like, let's say we ran out and we killed Sigma, right? We want to run out and kill, you know, Zen or Brig. If they're not sitting right on Sigma within our, like, you know, distance, like, of our hammer, we're not likely to be able to close the distance on them anymore, right? Because we no longer have amp. We don't have lamp to sustain, right? We might be discorded or half HP. So, like, resource has gone away for us, right? We've run out of resource. So, we've hit our peak. It's only downhill from here. So what should we do during this time? Well, we want to go back to this portion, right? So hide again. So what that might look like is we'd start in the statue here. The enemy Sig comes to here. We run out at him. The enemy Zen and Big are back here. We might just, you know, go to the nearest piece of cover, which would be right here. And the enemy Zen and Big would back to here. And then when we're ready again, we'd run out at them, right? So, like, something interesting to compare it to is dive, right? Dive is staging, 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 dive, no more cooldowns, get out, staging, 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 right? It looks like this as well. So the power specs that come from Brawl and dive are quite similar. Then you might ask yourself, okay, do power specs come in any other comps, or are there any comps that don't have a power spec? Well, actually, like, double shield was characterized by not having necessarily like a power spec until they get ultimates, pretty much, right? So it's pretty much stable the whole time. So like they don't have like any power specs or anything, they just stay relatively stable till they get ultimates, then maybe it goes to here, right? But it's not explosive at all, comparatively, right? So it's just important to understand like what is our comp good at, right? So like the whole Brawl versus spam. What is the enemy team good at? Dive and spam. And then ask yourself, what are we better at? We're probably better at brawling than they are, so we have to force a brawl, right? And then from there, we tailor the way we play around what we're good at and what they're bad at. We force them into playing the way we want to play. This plays into the concept of like pacing, right? Because pacing is the speed at which your team is playing the game, like how you control tempo. And if you can control the pacing of the game, then, you know, no other team will be your match, right? So right now, I think that something we really struggle with is if we haven't seen an enemy team play a certain team comp before, we generally let them set the pace, and then we never regain that. And that's tough, right? Because if you don't control the pacing, you're not going to be the one that ults first. You're not going to be the one that takes initiative, right? In general, comps like with any kind of explosiveness want initiative, right? Like dive wants to dive first. Brawl wants to, you know, initiate first, right? They don't want to be run into, they want to run into other people. So let's take a look at our first point rotation, and I'll explain to you where I went wrong. So we see what the enemy team is, we kind of know what they are, we need to adjust the way we play now. So yeah, the enemy Sig's here, we're gonna smack our face into him. I'm DMing off his support damage, essentially. We kill him. Now that we've killed him, we need to take cover because we just spent all our resources and HP, you know, running out. Just look what happens if we were to go in right now. Like, how are we going to go in when, you know, like, D.Va's obviously out of DM and at half HP. We don't have amp anymore. We might not have a stun anymore. Like, that's not good, right? So, like, we obviously can't stabilize in the middle of the choke either, because that's not, like, how you stabilize, right? You have to get into cover. So I'd say maybe go into hotel, maybe just play the right hand side of the choke, right? Instead, we just keep committing. So it's no surprise that, like, we're going to get punished for it, because the enemy team, they are a comp based on interrupting rotations with ball and tracer, right? And disrupting rotations, like booping people around or slamming, right? So the longer our rotation is, the more likely we are to get interrupted. That's why, like I said, right, if you hide in the statue, wait for the sig to come close, it's a tiny short rotation, and then you reset right away. So like, there's a very particular way of playing into like these comps, right? Like if you don't understand like the underlaying macro of like we're better at brawling than they are and we have to force a brawl, and we don't want long rotations, then we're going to inevitably fall into their trap of like, okay, rotate against us a lot, run on us all one by one, let us kite you around, right? And that's what happened to us here, because look, we just lost our McCree, right? He got disrupted because our rotation was really long, and he might not have had stun anymore, I don't know. Yeah, he doesn't have it anymore, right? So like, it's tough. And of course, like, if we have full resource, our rotations are harder to interrupt, because short rotations, everyone could be more focused on the rotation order. And also, like, because we're using our speed amp, we're going very quickly, so it's harder to disrupt us in time. So rotation order and why it's important. So generally, Ryan has to be at the front of the team. McCree has to be at the back of the team. If we have a Sombra, hanging around the back. If it's a Hanzo, in the middle, or towards the front, Bap and Lucio in the middle. D.Va can be at the front or the back, depends on where you anticipate the biggest damage coming from, right? So like if you think they're going to pulse, obviously hang around the back. If you think that they're going to Zen volley you from the front, probably hang around closer to the front, right? Or the side. So, like, why do we have this particular order? Because I think that was a question that was asked by Sophie-san, if I recall correctly. So, the reason why like we rotate in particular like this is like if the enemy ball and tracer were to come from anywhere, they're not going to come from front, they're going to come from behind, right? So it makes sense to stack our CCs in our backline, because then, you know, like those people are countering the enemy dive engagers, right? And of course, like, the juiciest target in our team is always going to be a squishy, a support specifically. So if we put like the dangerous people in the back and the dangerous people in the front, so tanks and DPS, right? Then the supports are the safest, because, you know, they're surrounded on all sides by meat walls of like HP bars, and they're less likely to get pushed out of position, because McCree, you can't push him out of position if he has stun, right? He'll just stop you. So also from the back, the McCree can cancel the Hammond Slam very easily, right? With stun. So like there's a lot of reasons why we stack this particular way. And I'll cover more about rotations as we go on. So let's look at rotation at 120. So I think I've talked plenty about like a little bit of macro so far, so we'll carry on. So far, so good. Kind of. Could we be more stacked? Oh yeah, for sure, right? But also, look, our BAP has now started leaning towards the back, and our Kree has started leaning towards the front. So, like, the biggest burst damage from their team that can come out is actually probably going to be the Hammond Slam, right? So we want to always, like, be really, really, really tightly stacked. Like, everyone's model has to be touching someone else's, right? Like, form a conga line with your Kree in the back. Because, like, this ball should be interrupted, but, like, it's hard for Kree to interrupt it if he's not hanging further back and Bap is not hanging further forward, right? And honestly, think to yourself about this. If everyone was in a box this tightly together, and you guys all got slammed up into the air, the Ryan would also get slammed up into the air. Then the Ashe would not be able to pick the BAP over the shield, because Ryan would also end up in the air, right? But if we are like spread out like this, and Hammond slams these three, is the Ryan shield going to be able to save them from the Ashe in the window? Of course not, right? For example, in Orisa Hog versus Orisa Hog, so you have two shields, and this is Orisa, so Orisa is represented by squares, and hog is represented by triangles, right? How do you stop yourself from getting pulled and hooked? Of course, if the hog and the Orisa sit on top of each other, and the enemy Orisa was to pull over the shield, then both of these two get yoinked up into the air, but then Orisa can fortify and block hook. But if you aren't stacked with your main tank, then they can't use their cooldowns to block damage incoming, right? So, like, it's really, really important, just like in the Orisa Hog example, for everyone to be really stacked with Reinhardt, right? Because if you get bopped up into the air by the ball, in this case, it's just like an Orisa pull, yoinking you up in the air, and there's no Rein shield in the way, it's GG for you, right? There's not a lot you can do, especially because BAP lamp has like a certain height limit, right? So if you get Hammond slammed, you actually end up above the height limit of the lamp, you could die. Yeah, this rotation was obviously like quite sloppy, and so we got punished for it. And there's like many examples over the course like of this VOD that I saw, and it was as I suspected when I was ringing, because like I felt like it, but having watched it back through a macro perspective, I can say that it is true that our rotations are definitely quite like poor and weak. So in this case, if the ball was to slam, right, and they were to slam the backline, how would McCree stun if he has to do a 180? That's obviously harder, right? So, and then Lucio's further back as well. So the rotation order is wrong, right? Like, you have to be so disciplined to rotation order, okay guys? Remember, McCree in the back, supports in the middle. Watch this. Who got slammed? Well, actually both supports and Hanzo. Can either any of these three do anything about it? Of course not, only McCree can, right? So Cree has to lean towards the back, and these guys have to be more forward. So I think Cree is the one who needs to be in a different spot here. And of course, if we were all slammed together, right? Like, everyone needed to be more stacked with Ryan for sure. He doesn't walk any faster than anyone else on the team, right? We all kind of walk the same speed. So there's really no reason for us to be not stacked with him. Because if Hammond Mines comes out and we all get slammed, and Ryan gets slammed too, he's the only person in our team who can break the mines. But if we're not stacked with him, then who's gonna break the mines for us? Nobody. We're just gonna die, right? And of course, we can't be dying with lamp either, okay? So Freeze asked me, when do I heal versus like backline damage versus focusing as BAP on King's Row, when to switch focus, when to heal bot? It's like a pretty broad, generic question, but essentially, if we think about our rotation order, right? We have a Reinhardt normally, and yeah, let me just go out of the map so it's less busy. We generally have a Reinhardt, so this is Ryan, a Diva, Fat Blob. We'll make the BAP. Okay, like, let's say like this is Lucio, a little square. Hanzo, and I don't know, McCree in the back. And as BAP, you're somewhere here, right? So you're the red one. So honestly, the best way of describing BAP is head on a swivel. He has to look like he has ADHD, right? So when do you heal bot? When do you heal backline? When do you frontline? Okay. So when we're going in, at some point the enemy team is going to come into us and interrupt us as Ball and Tracer, right? if you see Ball roll by and your team is full HP or no one's gonna die anytime soon, you should be DPSing Ball. I mean, he's free, right? The enemy team has like a really unstable shield in terms of Sigma shield, right? Like it's not out all the time. DPS them, right? Like pretty much DPSing happens when no healing is needed, right? If healing is needed, healing takes priority. Okay? It's really that straightforward because no one should die for you to DPS. Because if your DPS died because you were DPSing, I mean, couldn't you have healed and they could have DPSed, right? So yeah, heal botting is for when your team is in danger of dying, right? Like you need to focus strictly on healing because, like, if you stop and do damage and someone dies because of it, not good. When do you heal frontline versus backline? Okay, so you know that in rotation, your main tank might be taking damage while we're running in, but your backline might be getting poked. So you're looking this way, and you're looking this way. So you're like jumping up and down in the air and looking left and right. Who needs healing, right? In the meantime, doing damage where you can. So there's not really like one good answer for you beyond just like make sure that you're having awareness that there are going to be people behind you all the time. Like all the time there's going to be people behind you. It's your job to make sure they're healed too, right? And everyone else's job is to just stay together within this box to make Bap's life easy, right? So we're going to look at an example right here of where I think that, like, for example, your awareness freeze in terms of like when to heal backline versus frontline was not good. Okay, so the enemy Ryan, or sorry, our Ryan is obviously going to take damage here, and our Kree is also obviously going to take damage. How do I know Kree's going to take damage here? Well, because he's high nooning, he's going to draw a lot of aggro, right? So I would like make sure my Kree is full HP, heal my Ryan, look at my Kree again, right? But it's very clear that right here, Kree is going to take damage because he's ulting, of course, right? And I hear the Hammond Slam behind me, I need to turn and look at my Kree, right? Because like, you're in the air right here, and you're looking this way, right? He doesn't need your help. He looks like he has enough HP. Let me turn this way. Let me turn this way, right? So, like, there's no such thing as when do I heal backline versus frontline. It's heal who is going to die first, right? Like, if I had to ask myself, my 400 HP Ryan versus my, like, maybe 80 HP McCree, and McCree gets the healing 100% of the time, right? Really that straightforward. This one was just like a random one here, but essentially, like, we came back to the cart here, and we were trying to clear the signal off the cart, and the enemy team's ball comes in and Hammond slams. We need to use lamp if we're going to die, for like helping us clear the mines and stuff like that, and just not dying right there. And also, if we're about to die, we don't want to be casting window, especially if they're not committed past the corner, of course, right? So not to pick on you, Freeze, just random thing that I saw about like a misused ultimate. Okay, guys, so I'm on cart right here as the diva because there's people behind looking to back cap. Now our team is trying to run from here all the way out to here to run people over. So based on what we talked about on first point, right? We want explosiveness. So any long rotations are big, like not good, right? So how can we maintain explosiveness and without going too far away? Like essentially, is there a point if your diva is on card to running out all the way out here and fighting here? No, not really, right? So where can we go? We can go in here. So our whole team can actually sit in here. Their team will rotate like this. They get to about here. We hear them, we run out, and we murder them, and then we run back in, right? What does this help us do? Well, we avoid long sightlines against this guy, and this guy, right? It's hard to get a Hammond Slam inside a room with a ceiling that's, you know, shorter than Hammond Slam, right? So it can be very strong. So I feel like we have very poor adaptability when it comes to like changing the way we play. But remember, like, Brawl can be played more than one way, right? Especially when you play against like hybrid comps and stuff like that. Identify what you're better at and then beat them on it, of course. But don't commit to these weird half pushes where we like just like run slowly at them across like a long space. It looks so awkward because it is so awkward. So that brings me to the first password of the video. Password number 1 is chocolate. It's part of like a 3-word phrase, so make sure you DM me the whole phrase. Okay, so later on we switched to a double CC, and we also did some rotating and stuff like that. So I'm gonna talk about rotation some more to help answer Kitty Cat Slayer's question. So obviously we made like this one rotation like behind, and I talked about this during the VOD too. You cannot make rotations where your team has to jump this gap because, like, look, people get lost in rotation just walking to the point. I'm not joking with you, right? And so any rotation that requires a whole team to jump a gap, not happening anytime soon, right? So there's 2 ways to deal with this point, okay? It's you go like this, you stop right here, rest, and then you go like this, and then inside, and then up the stairs, because it's hard to do anything else except run on them. So pick the way that's easy to get there, the stairs, right? The other way is this, okay? Just go here. Keep your team inside hotel. Put your tank on the point. 1 or 2 of them. They can aggro switch. It doesn't matter. Just put them on the point. What does this do? Someone has to come down, but none of our squishies are exposed to the high ground, right? Like our BAP can just sit inside the doorway. So the ball will come down to here, and we can maybe put our Sombra here and hack him, or we can all just run out at him. So why does this work? Well, the enemy team, they're spam, yeah, right? And their dive, yeah, but are they good at either as a hybrid comp? Because remember, like, hybrid comps are half of one comp and half of another, but they're not as good as like a pure dive or a pure spam at spamming or diving, right? So if we put our Ryan on the point, do they have enough spam to kill him? If we pocket him? No, they're really good at spamming at squishies specifically, right? And if we put our Ryan on the point, can they dive in? No, right? Because they're not as good at diving either, right? So we're taking advantage of like the weakness in their comp, right? And what are we doing by standing on the point? We're forcing a brawl. Because again, that's what we're good at, and that's what they're not good at, right? And from there, like, D.Va's job would be to go up and contest high ground and just be annoying, right? So another like rotation order thing here. So we're in rotation here, or about to be. So Jäger, you shouldn't run away from the team, because you can of course go to the phone booth after, when we're ready to force the brawl on the point. But while we're in rotation, of course Dive wants to dive us, so Ball will come into our team. He's gonna feed you a free kill, so you don't want to leave. And if he's gonna feed us a free kill, we have to ask ourselves, right? Dive comes from what direction? Behind. So who needs to be at the back? CCs. clearly we're not doing a good job of stacking CCs in the back of the team or keeping our supports safe, and our supports are not, you know, trying to get between the Rhine and the D.Va here. So supports scooch up a little bit more, and then McCree and Sombra lean back a little bit more, because look, if we hacked Ball in our backline right here, or stunned him and then hacked him, or hacked him then stunned him, this is GG. Like, we're 6v5, right? So like we could have approached this really differently. But yeah, I just wanted to explain to you guys like how you should rotate, or alternatives to those rotations, like how to force a brawl. Okay. Gonna go to Oasis.
Welcome to Oasis.
So I was quite satisfied with our first fight. It was all good. After our first fight's over, we have no ultimates, right? So we need to push up and play aggressive because we have nothing, right? So the faster we end the fight with like more aggression, we can win. Like it's better for us. So here we're going to hack D.Va and run out on her. And then ults are gonna come up. So we're gonna get some ultimates, they're gonna get some ultimates. So I like kind of have this thing I want to talk about like before the next fight even starts. Like, so I went back a little bit before we killed the D.Va. Now, who's gonna get an ultimate this fight, realistically speaking? This one will for sure come up. This one will probably come up, right? This one maybe, right? So, like, the rule for fight planning is like, pick an ultimate you have that you want to use. If you don't have an ultimate that you want to use, then pick a contingency, right? So like, let's say our fight plan is, okay, run out and kill D.Va, right? If the fight is still going after D.Va, like, dies, and Freeze has his ultimate, he's like, I'm gonna get my ulti this fight for sure. I'm gonna use my ulti when I get it. So then our fight plan becomes Cole. I can't spell. Becomes Coalescence, right? But if Coalescence doesn't work, then you'd pick like your plan B, which would be like, okay, I'm gonna Primal. For the record, I'm left-handed IRL and betting with the right-handed mouse, okay? So, like, my issue then in the next fight then becomes, okay, we've killed D.Va, the fight is still gonna keep going, the enemy team pops his Primal right here, and clearly the fight is still going, we haven't won yet, we need to match at least an ultimate for an ultimate, if not more, so then we need to pop Coalescence, right? But, like, this is 119 when the Primal gets popped, okay? So we're just gonna leave it playing for a while, and then we're gonna see when we actually finally use an ult. And look, like, my ult came up, but remember, D.Va Bomb is generally for remaking, so it's not on me to ult. Because Entry would do the same as well. Keep it for remake, generally. So, let's see how long it takes anyone to use an ultimate. So 119 to 137. So almost like what, like 18 seconds or something? Yeah. So we let them use ultimates first. Remember, like that's playing at their pacing, not ours. We should have used Coalescence, right? And if not Coalescence, then we should have like tried to pop another ultimate. Or gone really hard onto one target or something, right? Like, of course the best play is to use an ult though, so I would have popped Cole. I think it's a misplay not to. Now that we popped Primal, we've matched ult for ulti, we're still not grouped up, right? Like, really scuffed. And then we B-trap from inside, and it only hits like 2 people, right? And then immediately gets cancelled by their EMP actually. So all of this being layered by like just people ulting back and forth randomly without a plan tells me Like, our fights go on for too long, yes. But the reason why our fights go on for so long is we don't have ult plans, and we don't use ultimates when we're supposed to, right? Which forces us into using other ultimates that we're not supposed to, because, like, you know, if they have EMP and we have beat drop, we obviously don't want to be beat dropping, but the fight went on so long there, Lucio almost died, and then they beat dropped, right? So, like, if I had to say, you know, what could we have done better? We could have tried to get our ults up, and then ulted first, right? And if we see them ulting, we need to match, and then do more, right? If the fight's not won. Otherwise, it's like a lost fight, for sure. So right here, Jäger was having a hard time with, you know, whether or not he should EMP on the high ground, right? So I just want to say that we are a Brawl dive hybrid. So if you were to EMP the Lucio, we can dive up there too. That's okay. So if you're having a hard time, Imp can TP up there and just death blossom as well. So long as you get the Lucio in it. Most important to get Lucio in it because we don't want him to beat drop, right? And we want to do this quickly first because if they ult first, then they have a tempo advantage, right? A pacing advantage. So, like, I see Jäger just like hiding. No, go out there, EMP, don't worry, we'll make it happen, right? Just be like, Lucio on me, EMP, 3, 2, 1, and everyone knows we're gonna jump in onto your target through the wall because we can see you, right? Because look, their Reaper Death Blossom in our backline, which totally interrupts our EMP in main, right? Like, how can we be following up on our EMP if they're diva bombing, right? Because, like, our grouping up has been zoned out. So of course it's not gonna work out really well for us. This is just a small thing, guys, but, like, okay, we're gonna win the point right here. We're all grouped up. We gotta think about where our team is gonna come back from. So our team is gonna come back through main and then back here generally, right? Or through the room and then, right? But probably through main because that's where we've been going. So if you want to be regrouped with your team as quickly as possible, hang around here, right? Because if you hang around here, you are not as easily helpable because, like, both your tanks came back here, and if Reaper had been, like, over here, he could have survived because I could have maybe put a DM on him, just as an example, right? I'm not saying that he would have survived, but, like, if you guys hang towards main, not only is there, like, a health pack and the mega right here, but, like, your team's gonna rotate through. The concept of your team rotating through a space, like, I don't know, Laura made up a term for it, but it's just like spawn pathing, right? Like, when your team's gonna come back from spawn, which way are they gonna path through, right? So in this case, like, if you guys had been leaning over here, you would have had tanks to take aggro off of you right away, right? So, like, try to lean towards your team, because honestly, if you stepped off the point, you don't have to touch until it's just about to take, right? And flip the point. So, I think you guys were, like, too committed, too deep into the point when you could be hanging further back. It's not really all that important, but I thought I'd bring it up, because it did cost us a death or two. So right here, remember that if we're 99 to 44, for example, or 99 to 50 or 99 to 60, right? We do not have to commit ults because the enemy team will ult to take the point back from us. When we come back in, we're going to have a massive ult advantage. We can wipe them for free, right? So if it looks uncertain that we can win, right, don't commit ults. Because watch this. Let me go back to my cursor. Enemy team use EMP, Diva Bomb, Death Blossom. We have not used anything, okay? So if we don't use anything and we take the L right here, we can come back in next to it with Beat Drop, Death Blossom, EMP, Diva Bomb, maybe even a Coalescence if we're really good about it. And what will they have? Primal? Right? But if we go and this is the last fight, right? Like 2-on-5, and we pop our EMP, doesn't make sense. why not take the L to come back to take the W, right? No game makes you eat humble pie more than Overwatch does, right? Because fights are won and lost by ults, and you can't always have ults, right? So let them feel good for a moment, but you can win the map. Okay? So, we talked about this before as well, but we generally want to dive Zen if there's Zen Brig, Zen if there's on a Zen, Brig if there's on a Brig, just so we can set out the rules, okay? Because, watch this, the Zen, look at his health bar, and the Brig. We just ignore the Zen, and the whole time he just farms us, right? Brig's not scary, Zen is very scary, and he's so easy to kill, so of course we should have gone for him. Okay, this team fight was like a weird one. So Ana for sure, you could have lived for a little bit longer, right? Hug the pillar. Don't stand still. This is bad. Now hug the cover. Because when you get Hammond slammed against cover, you can nade yourself on the wall way before you can nade yourself on the ground. Buys you a lot more time. Now, they weren't looking at you, you literally could have just hidden. They don't know you're here. Wait, but if you decide to shoot, hug the pillar. Don't be in the open like this. And you died with sleep, so you could have slept the engage by ball. Yeah, could have been better. Now, the rest of the team. On this dive, we don't have Ana, but we chose to go in, and that's okay. Because I think we're going for a dry fight or something. Don't know. But we get a bunch of kills, okay? So, we made it equal, right? Zen for our Ana, and then we killed the Brig. Great, really great, right? Our monkey kills Hanzo. But yeah, we're 4 on. I think we're 4 on 3, right? So we can easily win. So should we all hunt down Diva that our monkey is pummeling around? Or should we focus on clearing objective? Of course, the monkey's pummeling something and they no longer become the focus of our team because he's gonna throw them somewhere to Narnia. And so we should be clearing at the point because if we don't flip this objective, they're gonna come back and we're gonna get another team fight. And it's really sad if we have to fight Zen Break twice because they come out of spawn and they take a long time to get there, right? So right here, we didn't flip the objective. We come back and we're still fighting the objective, but it's way too late. The enemy Zen and Brig are actually back in the fight. So I think it is a little bit embarrassing that we have to kill, you know, the enemy team twice as dive. That tells me, like, look, we don't understand that, like, technically, if we clear the objective, we won after killing their dive team, right? Or, like, their squishies. So what that means is, like, we've killed everything. Help clear the point before you go running off and pushing away somewhere, right? Because how else are we gonna flip, right? Like, Pharmacy's damage is gone, Monkey's damage is gone. Is Ana and Diva gonna kill Ball and Tracer? Not anytime soon, right? Okay. So, look at this, okay? Do you see this? Right, so then we're gonna switch over to Havana and take a look at that because I thought it was quite interesting.
Traveling to Havana.
I don't think we played terribly on Havana at all. I thought it was okay. So some small things. Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. So we're fighting like this, right? Soldier and Mercy need to be wide angled. Because right now their vision is limited to this. If they were here, then they could see further, or they can move up to here, or even be here. Personally, I think that, like, here is pretty decent. But it's your passive. If you have a pocket, play more aggressive, of course. You're the carrier of the team. You need to be able to see a lot. So right here, we're valking and we're pre-fight poking down the street, right? Yogurt's health falls right here, and we don't fix it. Look. Then his health drops like that, and then he dies. So we gotta make sure that we're healing too, right? Valking is not exclusively just damage boost, right? If your pocket is gonna die, that would be really, really sad, right? And Yogurt, don't get rocked. Just because we're poking down the street doesn't mean that, you know, we go out of cover like that, right? On the corner, because remember, if you're, this goes for Ash, like Imp and Yogurt, right? If you're getting pocketed and you hug a corner and you die on the corner, then you can get res behind the corner. You die in the middle of the street, you're gonna stay in the middle of the street until you respawn. Because if you go wider than me, as you know, like in this comp, the main tank, then there's no helping you, right? Okay. Now this is an awareness issue, guys. So enemy team is making this rotation outside. By the time they get to, let's say here, we stop peeking outside. Yogurt needs to make a move, right? He can go maybe here, because then he would be on a wide angle, right? Like, he can see them, and they'll be focused on our team over here, so he can't get shielded out, right? So that's where he should rotate to. And our team should sit here and like just spam them in rotation, right? And I said let them out of the doorway because I want to flex them in front of all of us. So let's look at how we react. Soldier has not started his rotation yet. Too slow. Mercy doesn't know what's going on. Is in front of the whole enemy team right here. Like, not good, right? Ana, way too up, right? Like, how can Ana be in front of Sigma? Of course not, right? Same with Hanzo. Maybe Hanzo should be up here. You know, unexpected cheeky angle. Like right here, maybe? Or here? I don't care, right? Ana should be back here too. Hog, how can you hook anybody if you're that far away? At this point, you knew they rotated left. You should be like, maybe right here, looking for a hook, right? Like, everyone is weirdly positioned and lacks awareness about what to do in the event of rotation, right? Because we know they're rotating, so everyone has a particular job, right? Hog is looking for a hook. He could get a free one right here and then rejoin the team so quickly, right? Soldier needs to find his off angle. Hanzo needs to start getting ready to spam the choke from a good position, right? Like, everyone's got their own job. Mercy has to be with Soldier. And then casting, you know, Valk, we lost our Valk to the dragon. So there was a question for me before about, like, when to use Valk, how to use Valk. So, ways to use Valk. You can use Valk to help your teammates charge ultimates, so it's not an ideal ultimate if your team already has ults in their bank, right? You can use it to secure a res. You can use it as a defensive ultimate against certain ultis from the enemy team. So for example, let's say they have Sigma Flux. that's a really great one to Valk, right? Because then you can keep your team above half HP so they don't all die, and it's easy to stabilize everybody, right? So if I see the enemy team has a Sigma, I would probably save mine for that, especially if we don't have a BAP lamp, like Mercy's Valk is the best thing against Sigma Flux. And it stops you from getting caught in the Flux too, because you can Valk and get out of it. If we saw that the enemy team had mines and you were not necessarily able to get out of it, you can use Valk to save your life. So only in one fight though, right? If the fight is lost, you're trying to save your dust out with Valk, not good. If you are trying to stop yourself from dying when you otherwise would have died, good, right? Of course, like, if you were to Valk during a Genji blade, for example, that would be great, because then it guarantees you won't die to the blade and you can res one person, right? So you're playing for two, because whoever you res would be the second person, right? So by Valking, you would preserve your life. When we Valk, we want to make sure that we don't leave cover too much, right? Because we don't want to die during Valk. And we don't Valk and then die right away either, right? It has to be like a safe cast. Is it okay to Valk on dry fights? Yes, if you're trying to get your teammates' ultimates charged. No, if you're trying to get ults out of the enemy team. So yeah, I think I've covered it. So yeah, we had some awareness issues right here. Now, okay, so I thought that right here, when we were playing against the Brawl team that was holding our spawn door, that we had really sloppy aggro switching. And I'm not sure that we know how to play it properly. So I thought I would play it and then let you guys watch it so that we can take a look and I can explain it to you. Okay, so the premise of the aggro switching is that the enemy team is a Brawl team. They want to stay in one group, right? They don't have the manpower to camp two doors at the same time. So you pick two doors opposite sides from each other, so here, and you just take turns. So it's like okay for the DPS to choose to go with either side, but generally the Sigma side is a little bit safer. So up to you guys how you want to play it, right? But essentially we're trying to keep the enemy team turning back forth, because then we could try and use those opportunities where their back is to us to try and get a hook or make an anti-nade happen or get a kill, right? So the premise is that, or this is all on the basis that like both sides are not dying constantly, right? Because when one side dies, then the other side is also fucked, right? So that means like if you're Hog as Sandorn, right? Like you don't even have to do anything right there. You don't have to go outside. He's already looking at you, right? If you have aggro, then don't run out, right? Look, their back was turned. Reaper immediately punished, right? But our Hog should also get punished right here because he misplayed, right? So even though we +1'd, we immediately went down 1 as well. So net neutral, which is, you know, not good. It's actually worse for us because they lost Reaper, but we lost Hog. He's one of our 2 tanks. So how can we aggro switch without the other tank, right? Yeah, so we didn't die right here, which is good. We went back inside. So Hanzo took over the aggro switching because Hog's not alive. But yeah, Hog needs to take attention right here. And as soon as the Mei starts running over towards him, he needs to not run out. Because you notice the moment he steps out, he dies, right? So we gotta be really careful about like the switching of aggro. So in the future, I think we can do that a little bit better. Alright, oh, I still wanted to look at Havana some more. My bad. Shouldn't have closed it.
Traveling to Havana.
So Yogurt asked me, is it alright that I pushed up left side at first point attack and second point attack? So I thought that pushing up right here was actually quite decent. I just don't understand why you would not pre-fight poke, right? Because pre-fight poking is the opportunity to get a kill. Because what if imp bodies somebody and you helix somebody? That same person. They would of course die, right? But if we don't pre-fight poke, we're missing out. And of course, like, if you're right here, I don't care if you go even wider. Why not? Right? What are they gonna do to you? Do they have a diva? No, of course not, right? So punish. They don't have any long range damage to really hurt you with besides, you know, May. So, like, take advantage. Space is good. Pressure is better. I thought that was fun. This is like a whole team thing at 13:30 though, for real. So, right here, the enemy team, for context, is still on the Brawl comp. They're bottom left. We've scattered them out. Yogurt, you asked, like, should I have gone here? Okay, it's fine that you went here, but what if they didn't go there, right? What you need to do is take more space this way. One of, like, the FPS principles or fundamentals that you might know of or might instinctively kind of understand is if you lose space in one spot, you need to take space somewhere else. So what does that mean? So the enemy team is going to go through here and then run up the steps this way, right? They're taking space control right here, but in exchange they gave up top, right? So Yogurt from his position is actually in a pretty decent position because when they go out and they took left side, he can control top or side right here and then shoot them in the side or the back the whole time, right? Now that was like the potential play. Now watch how that actually plays out though, because I don't think like we understood the basic FPS fundamental or principle, right? Sorry, after I talk for a while, it's difficult. So here we ran back. For what? What scared you away? Right? Do we want to be front to front with their team? Remember, like their team wants to exist in like one like blob, right? Our team wants separate angles on their team, right? With one person, like let's say us being the Sigma, taking the aggro while everyone else is dumping damage in from the sides, right? Because remember, Ryan Shield can only face one way. So we don't want both our DPS facing into Ryan Shield. We don't want them to run on us. Because, like, why would we do this? So obviously, don't Dragon in their face, right? Despite the fact we did get a kill with Dragon, we don't want a Dragon in their face. And, like, their team is this close to us. Does our soldier want to be, like, essentially touching their Ryan? No, of course not, right? So this is, again, like an awareness issue, right? Everyone needs to understand their job. It's a Sigma's job to take aggro. It is the soldier, Mercy, and Hog's job to all be on different angles, Soldier and Mercy together, of course, to punish the enemy team as they engage onto Sig. And then Hanzo needs to help Sig out by playing further back and then applying pressure, right? So Sig always takes first aggro, but we cannot all be stacking like this because that is not what we're good at, right? Like, we're not good at brawling their brawl comp. Obviously, their team comp is way brawlier than ours, so understand what we're good at, understand what our jobs are, right? And then go from there. So I talked a little bit about like the high ground control on the end of third point as the attacker, like how we can control more. So in this fight, look how many people are dead from the enemy team. Do we need any flanking to take space at this point in time? No. Of course not, right? Like, look at this. So then I saw a soldier and Mercy go like this. What? Why take the long rotation, right? Go up middle while it's free. Go here, go here, go here, go here, sit here. Who's gonna force you down? Nobody, right? Like, it's so hard to flush out a pocketed DPS because, like, you need equivalent resource to do so, right? So, like, why are we wasting our time when we just won so much space? Like, okay, consider this. I'm probably the highest elo player in this game right now, right? My first instinct is to run here and take space. Our first instinct here with our quote-unquote carry DPS is to sit far back. No, right? Impact means getting in their face, control the pacing, control the tempo, right?
60 seconds remaining.
Because you see, now Soldier and Mercy have finally arrived into the fight, but they're not in a position to exert any pressure. Like, this kind of flank. Why do we do this kind of flank? we flank like this if the enemy team is sitting here so that we can break the choke, right? I'll pick a better color. So that we can break the choke by going around it, right? But we already broke the choke, so there's no reason to make a rotation like this, right? Instead, we are now trying to hold space. So we want like oppressive positioning where we can just be beaming people from high ground, right? Like they have to run out to the cart, so they don't have time to contest this space, right? So what that means is like our soldier and Mercy should be up here. Maybe our Hanzo should be maybe like far back here, right? Here is okay too if he's looking at this door. Like I don't care, right? We just need like space control because we won and we didn't control anything, right? And that later comes back to bite us in the butt because the enemy soldier ends up nano visoring from high ground or something.
The payload is approaching its destination.
Okay, look at this. Like, now he's on the highest position with nano visor, and he's going to visor people.
30 seconds remaining.
I've got you in my sights.
Right? So space control would have made all the difference for us, for sure. Alright, gonna move on to Blizzard World, which is our last map. So our VOD this week isn't as long as usual, I think, because I don't actually have any of you guys to talk to. It definitely is a little bit more awkward to give a VOD by myself.
Defend objective A.
Okay, so the enemy tracer is gonna come behind, and this is like an awareness issue. I don't know if you hear it, but the tracer is blinking around behind and stomping around back there. This is like such a narrow walkway with a tiny doorway. Our Hanzo should have controlled this space better, right? Now, what about our Ama? Like, in this room? Has 100 HP. Should have naded herself to heal herself, right? Instead, has no nade. Antes the ball. What would anteing the ball here do? Nothing, right? Cause, he's just gonna roll away, right? So both misplaying right here. So generally speaking, with Ana and Ash and Mercy, right? Ash and Mercy are just responsible for each other, generally. But if we're playing like all stacked up like this, just in the future, Mercy, it is your job to help your team a little bit too, in there, so long as you let your Ash know. But yeah, should have scattered out the flank better. Freeze, don't anti-random stuff, right? Okay, so then look at this team fight right here, okay? We have these two ultimates, right? They have also two ultimates. Regardless, we need to ult, correct? Because it would be really, really sad if we were to lose this point with a whole bunch of ultimates, right? So watch this. Enemy team engages on us. So they just popped two ultimates. So at some point, we gotta ult ourselves, right? So we throw out Bob. If the enemy team uses two ults and we use one, we need another at the very least, right? Right now, I think this is like a no-brainer nano onto our Orisa or our Bob, right? But we hold nano for way too long. Remember that in our team, everyone takes initiative with their ults, right? So you say, I'm gonna ult now, this fight, right? Before the fight, and then during the fight, you're like, okay, I'm gonna, I don't know, Bob, or I'm gonna nano Bob, or whatever, right? And you do. If you don't ult here, you're going to lose with your ultimates, and it's very sad to have 3 damage boosting ultimates, 2 of which are healer ultimates, and not use any of them, right? I think it might be too late for us to use Bongo. So really, it falls onto Ana and Mercy. Like, either one of you guys could have, like, used one of your ultis here to make a difference. Because I think it is like super weird that the nano only comes out after everyone is already dying, right? Like that's not good. Like ultimates, if used like reactively, generally provide way less value than proactively used ultimates because if you stab the other guy first, he's gonna start bleeding first, right? If you just spend your time bandaging yourself, you're not really hurting anybody. Does that make sense? And that's kind of like a crude way of like describing the situation, but like the aggressor generally comes out on top. Playing defensively isn't really the solution when it comes to ulting first or second, right? Of course, there are a few exceptions to that rule. For example, like actual defensive ultis. For example, like beat drop, right? But like for everybody in general here, just make sure that you're ulting first, that you have a planned ult first, because I feel like our fight planning kind of fell by the wayside here. Like at this point, when we nano our Orisa, we've already lost though. We lost our Mercy, we're down. And so like our Mercy also died with Valk. It is like really unfortunate that like, for example, my ult only just came up, Yogurt's ult only just came up, right? That like Sandor's ult came up in the mid fight. That we lost this with essentially 4 ultimates on the board. Not good. So right here, Hanzo and Ana got bad spawn. I help Ana and Hanzo come back out of spawn because I don't want them to get spawn camped by Ball and Tracer. Now, it is our job to rejoin our team. So that means walk across this walkway and then walk to our team. Why is it important to get back together with our team? Well, the enemy team is kind of like... Let's go over this example again, right? The enemy team is Spam, right? And they're also Dive. So Dive wants you to be isolated, and Spam wants you to essentially keep your distance from them. We're just a pure Spam comp, right? So if it came to dealing with the Dive, we probably want to put a roof over our head, right? Because we don't want to deal with them. And we want to play together, right? Because we don't want to isolate ourselves against Dive, because that's what they want. So we are not going to beat them in that regard. We just have to play defensively in that regard. But in a Spam versus Spam, why do we win? Well, we have more Spam damage, right? And we also have 2 shields. So in the long run, we have way more resource to beat them with. So if we want to beat them, we have to outspam them and play defensively in regards to their dive. So the worst thing we could do is isolate ourselves, okay? It would be absolutely unacceptable for us to isolate ourselves. So our team is now without a healer, without a big heal, right? So not acceptable. You need to know like what your job is, right? Your job is to be with your team. Everyone's job in this comp is to be with your team. And then Sandorn, okay, it says it's an accident that he fell off the high ground. He actually jumped. Like guys, please, right? Like, we can do so much better. It's not a solo game, it's a team game, so play with your team. Alright? Now, the enemy team is going to pop Sigma Flux. And... okay, obviously, like, Ana was gonna die there, but now we need to return back to our team. And I think we messed up our GA, whatever. Enemy Sigma is going to Flux. You now have 2 DPS to heal, and the enemy Sigma has Flux. This would be like an obvious time to Valk because you want to recover your height really quickly, reset GA, whatever, and get heals onto both the DPS at the same time so they can both live, right? Because honestly, this is like a super turnable situation, but not if we keep losing people left and right, correct? And if you honestly wanted to like go for that Ana res over there, I would have out and gone in for the res. Okay, so the third password for the VOD is strawberries. Alright, like the fruit, the red fruit with like the seeds and like the green tops. So when we go out of spawn here, we're Brawl. Brawl wants to stay together, including the Ana when Ana is playing Ana and Brawl, right? Like, this is not a dive comp that we're playing, so you gotta identify what team comp we're playing and then play together. And then not throw our cooldowns out randomly, right? Because 1 second after we throw out the cooldown and leave our team, we get engaged on, right? And this is on us for playing by ourselves, right? And the whole engagement, like, I can't comment on our engage, really. Like, yeah, we should have killed Zen, but we also have no heals, right? So, of course, our run is just going to go down. So, we have to, you know, pay more attention and play with our team. And supports, I don't want you guys to feel like I pick on you more than the rest of your team. Like, honestly, the real reason is you guys are the newest. Everyone else has kind of had, you know, some time with the team to get voted and stuff like that. A lot of them have been on the team for almost a year. Some of them have been on the team for over a year. And so, like, they get picked on a little bit less because they know, right? And eventually you guys, the new two, will know as well. So be a little bit patient with the learning process, I guess. Alright, so we TP. Again, the enemy team is like a different comp than us, so it's not a mirror, so that means there are things that we're better at and things that we're worse at, right? So we are a pure brawly dive, I would say. I would say it's a brawl dive comp because the Symmetra TP makes it kind of a dive comp, right? So we can close distance really, really easily. The enemy team is just a pure spam, right? There's not anything weird about their team. So can we beat them in terms of spamming with Symmetra and McCree? No, we cannot. They don't want us to close the distance on them. So what do we have to close the distance on them? This, right? So what we're going to do is TP near them. So we TP'd underneath them and then run the rest of the way. So watch this rotation. Looks pretty good so far, except supports are not in the middle of the team, right? They're in the back. This goes for all rotations, not just against Brawl. Middle of the team, because what would happen if the back line got pulled right here? We would have no heals. What would happen if we got zoned somehow by maybe like Dragon, right? That would also be really, really bad because, you know, like, where's our speed? Where's our big heal, right? So right here, look who makes it through the Dragon. The tanks. Do the tanks walk any faster than the supports? No. And the Dragon wasn't going to kill anybody, so like everyone needed to play really, really stacked, right? Because if you're really stacked, you can make it through the Dragon with Lamp too, right? But not everyone's going to be really like hard pressed to get through the Dragon because, you know, no speed, right? So it was like a little bit of a pega that like even these small rotations where we don't stack properly cost us a lot, right? Like including potentially the whole team fight. And I just wanted to cover the rules of TP one more time and include like little amendments that we've made because sometimes like that's a little bit weird. So when we want to put down TP, rule number 1 is TP can only be placed near people, okay? Unless it's something that won't kill us. So if you were TP on a BAP or a Zen, totally fine. You're TPing against like, I don't know, like a whole spam comp, put it near them, not on them, right? Because they'll break it. Now, rule 2, place it in front of your team but behind your Rhine. So never in front of Rhine shield, okay? So in team. Rule 3, consider where you're going with your TP, right? So, like, if the cart is at the end of third point, and we TP on top of the wall near the cart, it has to be close to the objective, so that's great. Now, if the cart was like, I don't know, like right here, then there's no reason to TP behind, right? Because the objective is right here. So rule 3 is consider your objective. And of course, there's a different set of rules about playing into TP, right? Like, don't let them place it, so occupy the spot that they're going to place it, or occupy the spot they're going to place it to, right? One or the other. So yeah, really, really straightforward. I think that, like, the easiest summaries for, like, the VOD are, I want you guys to all understand what your job is. I want you guys to understand what team comp we're playing and what we're good at versus what team comp they're playing and what they're good at, and then alter the way or tailor the way we play to be advantageous to us and disadvantageous to them. That sounds more complicated than it really is, considering, you know, you just had a VOD on it. I'm sure you guys all understand it now. And also, like, I want you guys to learn to control, like, the pacing of things, right? Like, alt first, match alt for alt, have a plan, right? And I think I've addressed everybody's, like, individual questions, but if anyone has any more questions or any questions about anything I've said during the VOD, you can DM me the question or the timestamp that you have an issue with, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Make sure that once you watch the VOD, you DM me the 3 passwords that form one phrase. And I will see you guys Monday for our script. Okay? See you guys then.